What's going on, guys? I'm going to be breaking down one of the more consistent trilogies ever made, the Creed trilogy. And what better way to start it than starting from the beginning? So let's talk about Creed 1. Outside of the first Rocky film, I rarely delve into the film's direction in depth. However, today, I'm going to make an exception because Ryan Coogler absolutely nails this approach. At the time, Ryan Coogler is primarily known as an indie film director, not yet achieving a major breakthrough film with a well-known title like Black Panther. Therefore, I was skeptical about the revival of the original premise and who would be handling the behind-the-camera aspects. But boy, did they find the perfect person for the job. This is undoubtedly the most cinematic installment of the franchise to date. Coogler incorporates brilliant handheld shots to not only add personality to the film, but also immerse the audience in the scenes, making it feel as if we were right there with them. He also employs a wide range of close-up angles, which can sometimes be misused in films, like it was in Rocky IV. However, in this film, the close-up shots effectively convey emotions and draw the viewers into the character's feelings. Of course, Coogler delivers fantastic long-take sequences of the boxing scenes, which are simply cinematic to the highest degree. His camera work captures a sense of realism, which is further enhanced by the exceptional cinematography. Coogler uses natural lighting and shadows to create an immersive experience, making the audience feel as though we're part of the action. Coogler's exceptional sense of direction is evident not only in its visuals, but also in its storytelling. The film is a refreshing breath of fresh air filled with an immense amount of heart. While some critics dismiss this film as a mere cash grab, capitalizing on the name without doing justice to the source material, it is the complete opposite. Creed is a brilliant love letter to the source material, elevating its ideas to new heights. It stays true to its roots while incorporating a new unique style and flair, making it both enjoyable and distinct. Like the first Rocky film, Creed is a harmonious blend of a character-driven storytelling and a compelling narrative. The film seamlessly integrates new and existing ideas, creating a cohesive and satisfying experience. This film feels like its own distinct film, drawing inspiration from various Rocky films without overdoing it. There are shades of Rocky V, where Rocky trains a young and ambitious protege, and Rocky I, which emphasizes a grounded character development alongside Creed taking on what seems to be an insurmountable task, as well as shades of Rocky II, with Rocky being sick, also known as Adrian, of course. However, after that, Creed stands out on its own with its innovative variations of character work, their interactions, their chemistry, training sequences, cinematography, writing, and the training and boxing scenes. One positive aspect that Coogler doesn't attempt to conceal is the fact that he borrows ideas. Instead, he deliberately highlights their origins while putting his own style on it, which allows the film to stand on its own merits. I particularly appreciated how they didn't simply reference previous work saying, hey, I know you've seen this before and liked this before, so I'm going to do it again. Instead, they created something fresh and exciting. For instance, the film incorporates subtle cues from Rocky having his ball, Creed wearing stars and stripes on his shorts, slowly panning to Cuff and Link his turtles, and of course, the revised version of the run from Rocky II, where Creed runs with the bikers, is all beautiful moments. Simply put, this film is incredibly powerful. It features a multitude of stakes throughout the film, including Creed's upbringing, his battle against the overwhelming opponent, Rocky's battle with cancer, and the subtle pressure on Adonis' relationship. However, these stakes are the heartbeat of the film, where most of the best moments come from these risks and turmoil faced by these characters. Creed still incorporates themes from the original Rocky films, such as Go For It and Keep Moving Forward, but these messages are presented in a different way than simply just about the boxing. The film primarily focuses on the actions of the characters, making it more about life and family than boxing, which is arguably more impactful. While I'm on the topic of standing on its own merits, this film feels like a complete film with tremendous rewatchability. If they hadn't decided to make sequels after the first Creed, it would have been perfectly fine with me. But they include some small open-ended plots that allow for sequels, which birth two more pretty decent films. Ryan Coogler and the casting director deserve a big round of applause for assembling these incredible actors and actresses. They shine exceptionally bright together to the point that Stallone was nominated for an Oscar since the first Rocky film, and you can arguably say that he was robbed of not getting the award. In my humble opinion, and I feel like a lot of people agree, Michael B. Jordan was gifted to us by the gods. He's one of the best actors in Hollywood today, and it almost feels like he was destined to play this type of character. He transformed his body into phenomenal shape to fulfill the role, though not to the extent of Sly's transformation in Rocky 3 and 4, but incredible nonetheless, and he seemed to have a blast doing it all. Coogler's writing of the character and Jordan's portrayal were truly exceptional. The character of Adonis is layered and very intriguing. He comes from a flawed and troubled background, having no one by his side during his young years, and those are the most important years of your life. He wanted to have what appeared to be a pretty successful career as a stockbroker, but he left that behind to pursue his passion for boxing due to his late father. He returns to what allowed him to have that background and starts to try to make it on his own. However, he couldn't have done it without a few friends, Rocky Balboa and Bianca Taylor. At times, his character can be a bit arrogant, but his hard-headedness makes him a phenomenal fighter and allows for a great character arc. The filmmakers paid meticulous attention to developing his character, give him a lot of depth by opening the film with a glimpse of his backstory, and then watching him mature as the film progresses. I found that to be a very important touch. If they had simply started with him quitting his job and looking to box, it would have came across as cliche and difficult to sell to the audience. But by taking the alternative route, they allowed for more color and an interesting aspect about Apollo that was never really hinted at, which I found very intriguing as well. As I briefly mentioned, the chemistry between him and Tessa Thompson and Sylvester Stallone is absolutely seamless. I could have easily watched these characters interact for hours without any issue. He equally shares great moments with both characters to ensure neither gets overshadowed. As for the chemistry with Thompson, it's simply immaculate. It's different from Rocky and Adrian's dynamic, being more new school if you will, but it works for all the right reasons. Tessa Thompson in the role of Bianca is absolutely wonderful. She's another tremendous actor in Hollywood these days, where I personally haven't seen her have a bad performance yet, even in that new dry MIB film. Her character was so well acted that I basically was sold that she was from Philly. As for Stallone, any criticisms he may have had in the past about being a bad actor is completely put to bed here, regardless of the Oscar nomination. He fulfills that Rocky 1 persona once more, executing it perfectly, as always. It also has a nice blend of that style from Rocky 5, mainly because he fits back into that trainer role. He's that old guard, wise style of character, but he's still a simple-minded coconut that we all know and love. His performance was fantastic, yet effortless, where he never missed a beat with this tremendous trademark character. I very much appreciate how Coogler didn't try to switch up the style of his character to try something new. After all, the oldest trick in the book is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As I mentioned, he's a similar version from the first Rocky, but he's still doing what he was doing in Rocky 6, or Rocky Balboa, whatever you call it. Taking care of his restaurant, going to see Adrian, and mainly making peace with what life has become. Now, the character arc that Coogler introduces to Rocky's character adds immense depth to not only his already remarkable character, but also to the story itself. It also positively develops Jordan's character. Tony Bellew, one of my favorite European boxers, took on the role as the main antagonist. It's actually quite amusing how the role came about, so let me tell you about that. The short story to it is, Bellew received a bunch of calls from the studio, and he kept saying, "Stop calling me fucking phone," and hanging up on him, mistaking it for a joke played by his friends. He reportedly told the studio and his agent to stop calling, but once he realized that it wasn't a prank, he wasn't entirely convinced because he knew he wasn't an actor. Despite the initial hesitation, he eventually accepted the job, and I believe he performed exceptionally well. His character development mirrors Apollo Creed's in Rocky 1. They didn't give him a bunch of attention because this film was more about the characters than the boxing itself, like the first one was as well. Therefore, it was very fitting for the way they pay homage to the original film by sculpting the antagonist in a similar manner. While Bellew doesn't receive a whole lot of color, he effectively embodies the villainous role, naturally playing himself, given the reputation from those from Liverpool. They are known for their aggressive and confrontational nature, whether through verbal sparring or physical altercations. When it comes to the boxing and training sequences, this Rocky film stands out as nearly worlds different from any other films in the series, except for Rocky Balboa, which has more of a modern style. However, its unique approach works exceptionally well. As mentioned earlier, the long-take boxing sequences were meticulously crafted, making everything feel authentic, even though it wasn't a proper fight. The training sequences are also quite distinctive, reflecting a more contemporary approach. The clever way they portray Rocky's limitations in terms of his training is a testament to their intelligence. The first thing that comes to mind is the focus on the pad work. In contrast to the older Rocky films, where we see brief clips of Rocky simply smashing the pads, this film delves into the technical aspects, showcasing the remarkable evolution in both the films and the sport itself. I also appreciate the genuine improvements Adonis made during his training. It's as if the film began with Jordan being relatively inexperienced, which he probably was, and ended with him naturally becoming significantly better and sharper. Now, let's address my reservations about the film. I only have a few, which are more minor than significant issues, but I do have a couple nonetheless. My first nitpick is that Jordan essentially plays himself in this film, which I do feel is a reoccurring theme in his movies, but that's neither here nor there right now. While interviews with him suggest a similar persona, it's important to remember that he is a highly acclaimed actor of this generation. A bad actor wouldn't be able to deliver a powerful performance or learn techniques like that without putting in the effort. My second minor concern is with some of the dialogue. Given that this is the 7th film of the franchise, it is inevitable that some of the content will seem recycled, leading to a slight sense of repetition. Regarding the screenplay, if you watch this film for the first time, most of the jokes will land effectively. However, if you've seen this film a few times like myself, some of the jokes may not land as well as they once did. But with that aside, the screenplay does feel very genuine and authentic, coming across as these highly talented actors not even acting, yet just speaking to one another naturally. Lastly, I have a minor issue with the dramatic knockdown in the final fight. While it looks impressive and has good intentions, it comes across as somewhat cartoonish. Perhaps because I'm such a big MMA and boxing fan, I'm overly critical of it. However, in real-life combat, if someone goes down face first and unresponsive, the fight is over. They don't even count. So the fact that they went through the motions what they did, it was a little like, alright, this is a little too much right now. But overall, Creed is freaking fantastic. Creed 2, at its core, shares similarities with Rocky 2, Rocky 3, and especially Rocky 4. However, it also stands on its own distinct entity. When it comes to a boxing film alone, especially the 8th installment in a franchise, what more can you do but tighten up loose ends or rewrite the plots for the better? That's exactly what Creed 2 achieves. Well, I guess you could argue that the Drago premise may feel a bit overused. It makes perfect sense for a Creed installment. As mentioned earlier, it beautifully ties in, fleshes out, and tightens up loose ends from Rocky 4, which many consider to be their favorite. Although this premise could put a lot of asses in seats, they had some very big shoes to fill, and they delivered in aces. Creed 2 is still undoubtedly about the characters flourishing above all. The film seamlessly weaves in the story and the boxing elements, infusing it with dramatic and emotional weight. Although the creative team dusts off some old tools, Steve Caple Jr. found a way to hit a great amount of emotional notes throughout the film, coupled with a great deal of heart. While Creed 2 may not match the brilliance of the first installment, it takes risks that feel grounded and important to the main trio and their antagonists, prospering with heart and creativity. Adonis Creed battles with so much in this film. He has to battle with the family that essentially killed his father, while enduring pain, suffering, recovery, and ultimately defeat. He also has to navigate the trials of raising a disabled daughter, while also going through the trials and tribulations with not only his new wife Bianca, but with Rocky as well. The plot is intricate, but each element complements each other effectively. As I reluctantly shared before, most of these Rocky films have made me shed tears, but none of them even come close to the comparison to this one, especially the ending. Most importantly, the ending. Rocky films, as they always do, they take all these problems that have been brewing up since the beginning, they have them meet at the end in the boxing scene, and in Creed 2, it was absolutely nailed to perfection. How they completely turned the tables from Rocky 4 was outstanding and delivered a tremendous message. As I always proudly proclaim, I am the biggest Rocky fan on the planet. These films were not only a significant part of my life, but also helped me get through tough times. When I was feeling down or lost, I could watch these films and forget all about the pain. So, the way this film concludes was not only perfect, but also truly and utterly beautiful. I was not prepared for it. When it comes to the characters, they do an incredible job of developing our main trio, particularly Michael B. Jordan and Tessa Thompson's characters. However, their contributions don't end there. They also give our antagonists some great depth, adding a new layer to the Rocky franchise reminiscent of Rocky 4. Each character has their own arc. Jordan battles with his inner demons, Thompson struggles as a new mother while trying to support her family, and Rocky grapples with feelings of letting Adonis down, as well as his family moving away. Additionally, the Russians' journey since their defeat in Rocky 4 is explored, adding a layer of complexity to the story. Each arc had a great deal of time to be fleshed out and understood, especially Adonis' arc, which is particularly well developed, making him our true lead character, as he always is. The chemistry between our trio is outstanding and has only improved, especially between Jordan and Thompson. Their bond is deepened and strengthened, transcending mere banter to encompass the creation of a family, mutual support, and unwavering companionship. Watching these two characters interact is never dull, as if they were destined to play these roles for a lifetime. Michael B. Jordan faces immense challenges in his professional and his personal life, while Tessa Thompson arguably faces even greater obstacles. She now has to deal with her child being deaf, a responsibility that requires her and Donnie's combined efforts to give their child a brilliant life. On top of this, her career continues to soar. Despite these complexities, their bond has only become more impactful and real. With Sylvester Stallone's character, it's not that he gets sidelined here, because he still has significant contributions to make. However, there is a sense that he is gradually stepping aside, allowing Jordan to take the reins and transition the franchise into his hands. His character faces numerous challenges, including his strained family life with Robert and his relationship with Donnie. These personal struggles are seamlessly integrated into the main plot and themes of the film. While Rocky, Donnie, and Bianca are the main draws of the Creed franchise in this particular installment, the film's success is also greatly enhanced by the contributions of Dolph Lundgren and Florian Moutinho, one of those two. Although Moutinho may not be a conventional actor, granted he was in this, he was in Guardians 3, and maybe like 2 other films, he still delivers a solid performance as a formidable antagonist. In interviews, he seems like a pretty sound guy, but in this film, he embodies the epitome of a bad man. He adopts a similar character archetype to Drago Sr., a silent assassin. While his role primarily revolves around him training in boxing, he manages to make a significant impact, showcasing his strength and intimidating presence. Although he may not be a direct carbon copy to Drago Sr.'s style, he possesses the same level of threat and power, making him an extremely dangerous adversary. While his boxing resume may seem a bit limited, we don't really learn a whole lot about him, the eye test shows that he is a big league boxer, adding to his overall threat. When it comes to the boxing fights, they might not be as aesthetically pleasing as the one-take shots in the first film, but they certainly have their own unique personality from the camera work and the color grading. For instance, when Creed is shown in his world, the color scheme is one way, mainly being pretty colorful. On the other hand, when they show the Dragos, the color scheme is just straight blue-green tone. However, when they meet, the color scheme almost meets in the middle, creating a delightful picture. The camera angles that were used also add a lot of personality to the film. Cable definitely borrows some tactics from Coogler, but he has his own sense of direction with the POV shots, making it feel as if you were right there in the ring. The choreography is also pretty underrated for my money, making the fight feel very brutal. It's as if these two guys are essentially clubbing at each other the whole time. They were just beating the piss out of each other, it seemed. The fight feels much more tension-filled because of the backstory of Rocky IV, which makes the sequel all the more enjoyable and engrossing. I also found it interesting how, despite Drago winning most of the match, he was diminishing in confidence with each round, while Creed was only building. This is a great nod to the Rocky theme, and it also includes portions of how cheeky the Russians can be with their tactics and their strategies. When it comes to my drawbacks, I do have a few, but seemingly a lot less than the critical responses. My first issue is with the plot, which is quite predictable. After about a half an hour, if you've seen any Rocky film or any boxing film at that matter, you can easily anticipate how the first act will end and how the next two acts will unfold. While this doesn't mean that the film does nothing new or doesn't make a statement into the franchise, it was just easy to see where the film was going to go. My second issue is related to the sense of safety that the film exudes. Don't get me wrong, the film does take stakes and risks, but the predictable story flow makes it easy to guess how things will pan out. Before I delve into my next issue, I did notice one plot hole that stood out. In the first Creed film, Creed is a light heavyweight, which is naturally around 175. In this film, without any explanation, he suddenly jumps up 2 weight classes, gaining over 25 pounds. While this doesn't significantly impact the plot, it's a bit jarring and feels forced for the sake of Drago Jr.'s size. My next issue stems from the post-production antics, particularly the numerous cuts made to the film. The pacing was genuinely pretty good, but it's evident that some scenes were either trimmed out or trimmed down to reduce the runtime, ironically like in Rocky IV, leaving the film feeling somewhat incomplete at times. If they would have included another 25 minutes, the film would have been roughly 2.5 hours long, which is quite long for a boxing film, but it would have greatly enhanced the story and the characters. I would be willing to sit there a bit longer to get even more engrossed into the narrative and the characters. Furthermore, there were significant rewrites by Stallone himself as well as the revisions to the Drago premise. I don't believe that there were any significant flaws in the film, but there are some noticeable tone shifts in awkward sections. Additionally, the script feels somewhat predictable at times, relying on familiar elements to the film's history. The only other issue I encountered, which also had in the first film, was the dramatic knockdown Creed faces in the final fight. That was simply cut out a piece of Swiss cheese, and you cannot tell me any different. While the intention was commendable, the execution was clumsy and felt poorly handled. Nobody gets up from boxing and starts punching the ground. That was just so foolish for me. Overall, Creed 2 is still a very good film. Is it better than the first? Probably not, but I'd personally argue from a film critic's perspective that this film could be in the top 5 in the entire Rocky franchise. With the passing of the torch from Rocky to Creed, Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut was an excellent way to fill Stallone's shoes. While it wasn't an absolute groundbreaking blockbuster, it was still a pretty solid film with great shot selections. I was actually really surprised to see Jordan behind the camera, but he truly delivered, like Stallone did when he started directing. Jordan was privy to working with some of the best directors of his time, including Ryan Coogler and even Stallone himself, who taught him valuable lessons that he incorporated into his own style. The film's cinematography and editing were top-notch as well, making it the best looking of the franchise, perhaps just outside of the first Creed film by Coogler. One of the more impressive aspects of the film is Jordan's creative shot selections. For example, the shot where the wall splits Jordan and Major effectively conveys both their characters and the mood and emotions of the scene. It also represents the difference they represent in showing that, although they are friends, there's still certainly differences between them. The boxing sequences also featured a clever and stylish style with fast camera motions and close-up takes that added dramatic elements to the tone of the film. When it comes to the story, most importantly, I feel that this film shows that these films can survive on their own without Rocky. Creed is an intriguing character with several layers, but if we are being honest, Rocky's absence was certainly missed. It's almost as if they were testing the waters by omitting Rocky altogether. Outside of a single dialogue exchange, they don't even mention or show him, whether it's by a picture or even a flashback. While I do think the film could have benefited by showing him at least once or twice, I must acknowledge that the creator's desire to create a distinct franchise, which I appreciate. The film opens up in a unique manner, setting it apart from the typical Rocky films. It delves into Donnie's childhood and effectively uses the first act as exposition for the unfolding plot. The first act brilliantly establishes the tone, ensuring that nothing feels wasted or tacked on. It beautifully sets the stage for Donnie's upbringing, his current stage in his boxing career, and his role as a family support system. In my opinion, the film stands as one of the more tighter and cohesive stories in the franchise. From the very beginning to the end, all elements intertwine, creating a well-crafted narrative. As mentioned earlier, this film can stand on its own merits, but it still does draw inspiration from previous installments, particularly Rocky V. Creed's mentorship of Damien's raw skills and his desire to prove himself quickly, similar to Adonis in the Creed film, as well as the side plot of Adonis and his child's relationship are all reoccurring themes. While there are similarities between Rocky V and this film, the dynamics of the relationship between Rocky and Tommy, Rocky and Adonis, and Donnie and Damien are all distinct. Rocky didn't know Tommy through a can of paint, yet he invested heavily in him. In contrast, Donnie grew up with Damien, so he already had a deep friendship and partnership with him. Another aspect of the story that I appreciated was the continuity that continues from the earlier Creed films. Apart from Rocky 1 and 2, all the other Rocky films feel like their own standalone movies that subtly reference previous ones. Within the Creed franchise, they retain the characters like Ricky Conlon and Drago Jr., or Victor Drago, whatever you call him. I call him Drago Jr. In Creed 3, the creative team did an excellent job of highlighting our main duo in Adonis and Damien, as well as Bianca. As I mentioned earlier, I truly appreciated the new layers given to Creed's character, showcasing his life after boxing and taking on a role similar to Don King, if you will, but with a strong family man's heart. Adonis' love for boxing is evident, but it's clear that he fights for his family now, not just for the passion of the game. The steps taken to portray Donnie as a girl dad resonate deeply, even though it may not have been extensively explored as Rocky and his son in Rocky V. However, it was still a well-recognized and heartwarming aspect of the character. Bianca's relationship with Adonis is at an all-time high, showcasing their maturity and emotional depth, both positive and negative. While Bianca may have been more of a prominent character in the last two films, she still shines brightly in this one, highlighting the struggles she faces between her family, her health, and her work. Circling back to Michael B. Jordan for a second, his performance continues to improve with each film, growing stronger and more nuanced as Creed. He demonstrates a remarkable range of emotions throughout the movie, and demonstrates his adaptability as an actor by learning sign language to complement his deaf daughter, and the actor who actually plays the deaf daughter is actually deaf in real life, so I thought that was a pretty good touch. As for our antagonist, Jonathan Majors, he delivers a compelling performance. He's not just a straightforward villain like Clubber Lang. He has a complex backstory, being a flawed character who lived through Creed's eyes while he was in prison. This shapes his character, and the writers cleverly connected to his relationship with Adonis, making it arguably the strongest connection between a protagonist and antagonist in this franchise. The sheer fact that Damien's ability to get underneath Creed's skin further enhances the antagonist's character and their connection, portraying him almost as a psychological adversary as well as a formidable fighter in the ring. Another aspect of this film that is subtle yet very appreciated is the locations. While Rocky films typically take place in Philadelphia, this one sets in Los Angeles, serving as a subtle nod to passing the torch from Rocky to Creed. I feel like everyone knows Rocky from his iconic training montage where he runs to the art museum. In this film, they change it up and have Creed run up the Hollywood sign, which is another cool nod considering Creed's nickname is Hollywood. Additionally, Adonis' house is simply astonishing. Oh my god. It showcases his wealth as well as the gym he created through his hard work. Lastly, the boxing and training sequences in this film is quite interesting. The training montage was a bit flat and diluted given the numerous Rocky films that have come before. However, they still managed to capture some pretty cool moments between Creed and Damien. Creed's training is reminiscent of Rocky's in Rocky Balboa, as he's also getting older and damaged, but he pushes through these obstacles even harder to demonstrate he still has heart to go for it, which is a reoccurring theme in the Rocky films. As for the boxing sequences, I found them a bit short, but they were pretty unique. I appreciated the eye-level shots from over the shoulder, coupled with the quick angle shifts and slow-motion takes, which gave them a lot of personality. While many people loved the final fight, I had a few reservations, but I'll discuss that in a minute. Now, while this film is well-crafted and enjoyable, I had several drawbacks. My first and most significant issue is that it feels like a modern, refined version of Rocky V, featuring the training of a young and hungry unknown and a subplot involving a child fighting at school. Rocky V had high stakes, including Rocky losing his connection with his son, his fortune, and his health. In contrast, Adonis may be getting older, but his life isn't at risk, and his financial situation is far from being dire. Additionally, Rocky V evoked a range of emotions, while this one had its moments, but lacked the emotional impact of Rocky V. This makes it feel so more predictable and monotonous. To me, this also had shades of Warrior, if you guys seen it, the movie with Tom Hardy. So ultimately, this film didn't feel all that original while also lacking risks. To backpack onto that point, the plot unfolds in a predictable manner, so after the first act, you could almost anticipate how it will progress, especially from the main conflict between Donnie and Damien. Furthermore, the film includes numerous subplots that feel somewhat unnecessary. The death of Adonis' mother, while adding emotional depth, felt almost irrelevant to the overall story. Similarly, the subplot about Adonis' daughter, while showcasing Creed's character as a good father, lacked a clear purpose. It was done in Rocky V with greater weight, so it feels as if it was merely included to provide his daughter with something to do. On the topic of undeveloped characters, Tessa Thompson's character didn't have much to do in this film. While they touch upon her music career, it doesn't really go anywhere significant. Now, to be fair, in Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, Adrian's role is relatively limited as well, but she has a moment to shine, grounding Rocky and demonstrating her unwavering support. Tessa also has a similar moment in the third act, but it doesn't quite resonate as strongly as Adrian's. My next issue is with the pacing. The film moves fast, which I don't necessarily mind, but some events occur so quickly that the development behind closed doors remains unclear, where things feel rushed. It almost feels like certain scenes were cut to fit a shorter runtime, which hinder the character's growth. For instance, Damian has nobody when he moves to LA, but once he wins the belt, he throws his lavish beach party with an entourage. Maybe it's to show that people come around when you win, but I didn't really care for it all that much. It just wasn't too clear. Regarding the training and boxing sequences, they are both visually appealing in their own way. However, the training feels repetitive, making it difficult to maintain originality and being impactful. I'm eager to see how they can improve upon this in the upcoming Creed 4 film. The boxing scenes are genuinely well shot, but I personally found the anime style approach cheesy, particularly in the moments where they were simply staring at each other in the ring and just yelling at each other. It just came off very corny. Another issue is the abrupt transition from the 2 good rounds to a dreamlike sequence that lasts for about a minute or two, followed by a quick drop back to the final round. Like, how did we get here? In the Rocky films, each individual round wasn't choreographed, but the tension was palpable. In this film, by the final round, it's hard to discern who's winning and who's losing. Perhaps it was meant to emphasize that they were so evenly matched, but I didn't find it particularly compelling. To back onto that point, outside of the first match with Damian and Felix, there's almost no makeup used. Both fighters look practically unscathed, they walked out like they walked in, which further contributes to the sense of uncertainty in the final round. Overall, while this film doesn't necessarily do anything exceptional, it's still a solid film nonetheless. And there you have it. As a whole, this series is very consistent. I think the first film is honestly one of the best sports films ever made, and 2 and 3 are very solid sequels. Let me know what you think about the Creed trilogy in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.